Buenos Dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it? You already know. Like a torta with some bad habits. Bye up, bye up. Let's get straight to that intro. Welcome back to the channel. And if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and do that. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directed in the direction of the dope content that I stay kicking. And I appreciate the support, man. I'm very humbled. We're back with another one, right? An interview reaction of the Zapatistas prison gang. Now, this was a group and a gang that was created out of defense of other SNY prison gangs. SNY, also known as the Sensitive Needs Yards or the Protective Custody Yards in California, also known as the other side. General population inmates commonly will refer to the SNY side. They don't even like saying the words SNY, so they'll consider it the other side. The other side meaning the outside, the outcasts, the people who are basically considered the dredges of the California prison system. People that have weird offenses, have told in previous cases, couldn't hack it on the main line, were removed or stepped back and are no longer part of the general population prison gangs. The Zapatistas were formed. A lot of people don't know the history because they're a very clandestine group. There isn't very many of them in the state of California. And those that are considered very dangerous and violent individuals, right? They were started as a movement and created by an ex-Southsider, an ex-Sureño, and an ex-Norteño. In collaboration, these guys came up with the idea to take what already existed as a revolutionary movement, the Zapatistas, and create this prison movement. Now, of course, just like any other movement, man, when people have a good idea, we're going to start something in defense, for those of us that are opposed and for those of us that don't want to be involved with these other SNY prison gangs and don't want to be told what to do or be structured or politic. These gangs, these groups basically start and it turns from what is considered a revolutionary group, a movement, into a gang. That's just how it is, man. When you are recruiting ex-gang members or active gang members into any type of movement, it's going to be corrupted eventually. Eventually, people are going to start grouping together and deciding that for whatever reason, then they're going to do things the way that they know how to do it, and that's gangbanging. And it always comes down to that. It always happens. The Zapatistas, the difference between the Zapatistas and gangs like the 2-5, the Northern Riders, and other gangs that flourish on the SNY yards is they're a group that only takes in very few. It has been widely known that this group, you have to have a body to even be a part of the group or be locked up on a life case because of catching a body. And these guys are pretty notoriously known on those SNY yards to not play games at all. They are basically the elite, the top of the food chain. They only recruit those that are willing to pick up metal and handle their business. They have a policy within their group, no hands-on at all. They will not fight you. They will only stick you. Okay, so they're considered, and it is known that they carry weapons on them at all times, and they're willing to use them. So this interview was conducted, and it's an interview with an active Zapatista on an SNY yard on the other side, and he's basically gonna run you down on when one of the founders, the Southsider one, not the Norteño, but the founder, was actually removed on the yard, murdered on the yard, because he was getting a little too, his mind was going, okay? He was getting a little too big-headed, and he's going to recount that as well as other hardships and other struggle that he's been through in the California prison system. So let's get to it, man, because I could just ramble all day about this shit. Let's get to it and let's talk about it.
And the way it happened, and he came out, and next thing you know, the homie started getting bugged. He started getting stabbed, and he fought back, and one thing I say about him is he fought back. He never, and I'll never take that away from him, and I'll never let nobody take that away from him. Like, he fought back the whole way. So he went out like a warrior. He went out like a soldier, and like the good man that he was just towards the end of his life, he started getting a little too big for his head, and that was the only fucked up part. But besides that, he was a real good dude. Besides that, he started something good. He started a good movement. Yeah, it became a gang, but it was something good at the time, and
you could tell he has a lot of respect for the guy who lost his life on that yard. And that's the cold part about prison politics, man. And they exist on whatever yard you're on. There's going to be some form or fashion of politics. And what we mean when those of us prison content creators tell you about, I hate saying that because I don't consider myself that, but it is what it is. When we tell you about the politics on prison, it's not to be confused with government politics. It is within the structure of the prison system, and it's actually a good thing. You know, you need basically to police your own people, to keep your people in line, because if there was anarchy and chaos on them yards, it would be even more violent than it already is. So within each group, everyone polices their own, keeps their own in check, basically, and that's how these different groups and races and ethnicities are able to coexist on these prison yards in California, because everything comes down to racial lines and gang lines. And so if you don't keep your people in line and keep your people in check, basically, then you will cease to exist, because other groups will take advantage of the fact that you are showing weakness by not policing your own people. So obviously this guy got into some type of bad understanding with his own people, even though he was the founder, and they decided to take his life on the yard for it. But you could tell this guy has a lot of respect for him, saying that he went out on his shield fighting on the yard. He pretty much had no choice, man.
It needed that. On this side, it needed that. It needed something good that people could follow, something righteous that people could follow, something that people could fight for. So that's why a lot of people started grasping to it. So he did create something good for this side. It started kind of cleaning up all the yards. And
prior to the Zapatistas existing on the SNY side, there was older gangs. Probably the oldest dropout gang is the 2-5ers, which is mostly constructed of ex-Southsiders. That it was, and it's an older group, man. It was around in the late 80s, early 90s. And now has blown up right on the SNY side, because they could recruit more people. They have more action at walking that yard and recruiting. But these other gangs in the 2000s, when dropouts exploded, when people started falling off or getting tired of the program on GP, that's when these other groups started to form. And a lot of them in defense of the 2-5, because you got to understand at that time, the 2-5ers, and as well as the Northern Riders that came after and other smaller groups, were able to recruit heavily due to the influx of dropouts, right? And they started to take advantage of other people on those yards, because there was no one to keep them in check. There was no one to tell them no. And so groups like Zapatistas started to form, and because they were so elite with the people that they, and you got to understand, these are all guys that are on the dropout side, right? So when I say elite, you got to understand, these guys, they got a mindset, and their mindset was, we're going to be here. We got to live here. We're going to go all the way. And so they started to gain numbers, and immediately, of course, the 2-5ers were going to oppose them, and they're going to have a long war that continues today.
Well, he got kind of big for his head, and so he started getting stabbed. And as he was getting stabbed, he was fighting back. And in the end, he ended up falling. He just collapsed on the floor, and still continued to poke him. And I remember they were trying to pump him. But before that, right before that happened, I remember I made eye contact with him. And when I looked at him, when we made eye contact, that look that he gave me, it was kind of like he was disappointed in me that I'm not helping him.
And I could understand that, man. I had a homeboy that got removed in the county jail. And we were good friends for years and years. I mean, I've been to his house, been to my house. I know his whole family. And when it comes to the politics of prison and when you're involved in a gang, you know, there's only so much you can do for someone. And he found himself in a situation that he couldn't get out of, and no one else could get him out of it. And I remember when they hit him on the yard, and they didn't whack, like they whacked him, but he didn't lose his life, right? But he was on the yard, and everybody got down, those that weren't involved, because when it's a removal, it's only a set and certain amount, the the hitters that get him. And he had blood all over. He was pretty bad, right? In a bad way. And I remember him looking over at me, and the look in his eye was disappointment. It was sadness. It was like, it was a lot of emotions, right? And I felt bad. I actually felt bad for him, even though I know he fucked up and he deserved what he got. Being part of that life, you just deserve what you get, right? It's part of the game. I was like, damn, man, I wish I could have did something for him. I wish I could have helped him. So you feel a certain way, but you need to understand that every man is his own man, and he makes his own decisions and his own choices.
That, and I felt bad. I felt real bad, and like I wanted to. It's just prison politics, and
Yeah.
I didn't want to let that happen to him, but it did. And he wasn't supposed to die. He wasn't supposed to. That wasn't supposed to happen. So they started pumping him. They were pumping him in the chest, and they were trying to bring him back. You couldn't even hear the ribs breaking. I was close by. Laying on the floor for the soul to get down. And they were pumping and pumping, and they couldn't bring him back, and he died right then and there. And I said, sorry, man, just remembering him.
You could tell at one point in time, he either looked up, respected that man, still does, admired that guy, so it's hard for him. And especially, man, and that's what people don't understand about prison. It desensitizes you, because you'll see friends, family, those that are close to you fall right in front of you. And it's hard to get over something like that, something you never get over. People, they play this role on social media. Oh, I'm a gangster on this. I'll take you out. I got the blicky. I got the this or that. But until they've actually really seen someone fall in front of them, they'll never know. That's why a lot of prisoners get out of the California system, and every system, with PTSD and things like that.
I felt helpless. I felt like I could have done something, and I couldn't.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
It sure will.
And there was many situations where I had that. But in this one, he ended up passing away. Ended up taking him, and it's one of those moments I felt helpless, and it just reminds me. It reminds me of all the other times that I was helpless.
That word to me is always stuck in my life, the word helpless, right? Especially in the prison system, because here's a point, right? They put you in ad seg. You're depending on another man for food. You're depending on another man for water. You're depending on another man basically for everything. You're helpless. You are stuck, locked in a cage or a room. And if that man never walks by and gives you what you got coming, then you just don't got it coming, right? You're helpless. And to exist and be like that in life, wow. That's why freedom is so important, man. And people take it for granted, running around. Oh, yeah, man, I'm all for clout, all for recognition, all for respect by people who really don't respect you, who will take you out just like that. It's a trip.
Like there was this one time I was inside a cell. I was inside my cell in High Desert, and my two neighbors, they were fighting.
High Desert was known as probably the most racist prison in the California system. Welcome to high drama. There was a lot of woods, brother, right? Police officers, COs, that were like hillbillies. They were like just straight up big old white dudes, man. And I'm not going to lie, they treated the black and brown men different.
They were fighting, and we could just hear them. We could just hear them go ding, 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 ding. We were hearing everything on the van. And there was two older white guys, and one of the guys, he started grabbing them, boom, hitting them on the head. We could hear it on the sink. We could hear it on the sink go ding, ding. And then he would jump, we could hear him jumping from the top of the bunk and landing his boot on his head. And I could hear the dude calling out for help. And I felt helpless. I felt like I wanted to help the guy, but I couldn't. It might be one of those times.
The cool part about that is when it comes to other groups, gangs, ethnicities, it's none of your business, right? You can listen all you want through the vent, but regardless if that man's in there butchering that man, there is nothing you could do. It's none of your business. If you involve yourself in another group's business or any man's business, man, that could end with you being the one that's victimized, right? And probably more than likely by your own people for sticking your nose in another group's business, because that creates conflict and bullshit with other groups. And the main thing to do in prison is just lay low, just do your time, and when you need to be accounted for, be accounted for.
And when we came out the cell and looked inside, he was just laying in a puddle of blood, and he said he was just on his bunk sitting down, and he had a crater on his head. And it feels nasty when you're inside the cell and you're hearing that. It feels actual, because you want to help and you want to do something, but you can't, because it's prison politics. So you can't say nothing. He's calling out for help. The doors are closed. You can't do nothing. I mean, there's reasons why they were fighting or whatever, but it's just nasty to hear that. And it's not a good experience. That's another time when I felt helpless. Another time where I was real helpless. It was in high desert when I was in the hole. I remember the cops forced me to move in with a big old black guy.
Now that's very rare for I'm sure at that time, if he was in high desert, being Mexican or a Southerner, especially, to be celled up with a black guy. Usually that's a setup. They already know the two groups are like oil and water and they don't mix, right? But I'm sure this didn't turn out good.
I thought he was cool at the time I went in. I thought he was cool, and
hang up that computer call, come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth. I'm feeling romantical.
So I left off. I was in high desert, and the cops back in the day was just nothing but white cops over there in high desert, and they forced me. I was younger too. They forced me to sign up with this big old black dude, and I went in there, and at first he was cool, and I knew him from the yard too, and he was cool. So I stood in there, and then that same night when I fell asleep, he started choking me in my sleep. He got on top of the bunk and started choking me. I don't know what happened to me, and I thought I was gonna die. I don't know how I did it. This guy was like 3 times bigger than me. I'm 5'11" to almost 6 feet, but this dude was like fucking 6'3", 6'4", and like big old dude. And so I'm fighting him off, and he's choking me and pounding on my chest. I could hear my wrist breaking. I don't know how I did it, but I ended up like putting my foot all around, and I kicked him off. I kicked him off the bunk, and I jumped off, and we started fighting. We were fighting like for a while. I don't remember how we were fighting, but we were drenched in sweat, blood. And I don't know how I did it either. Right?
Whoever made this video, they're crazy, right? Look at, he was getting his Dragonfly Jones on.
I guess in that moment, all I thought was about my kids. My kids, so I had all they have is me. They're with my mom. My baby mama, she's not with my kids. She left. So my kids are with my mom, and they have no contact with her. She's just gone. So the only parent they have is me, and that's all I thought about. Oh man, I have to keep fighting for my kids, for my boys. So I did. I guess that's where the strength came, because this guy was huge. I ended up grabbing him, putting him in a headlock, and I was holding for dear life, and then while the cops do their little walk in the middle of the night, so they did their walk. They did their walk in the middle of the night and ended up seeing us fighting, and that's when they stopped it. They came in, they grabbed us, and they pulled us out. But that was another time where I felt super helpless. And he told me, when I found him in the cage, he told me that he had to get out first because all Mexicans get off. Said he didn't trust no Southsiders. outsiders will grind me. But I was not going to do that. I was not going to do that to that guy.
We're going to end that one right there, right? Part 1. We're going to get into part 2 today, later on today. It's getting good, right? So he goes into a cell. They sell him up with the black guy, which is pretty common in high desert for what they were trying to do, right? And this black dude, plays it off, plays it smooth. Oh, it's all good. He knew this black dude. And then the black dude in the middle of the night starts choking him out, and they start fighting, gets off. And his excuse was, I had to get off first, because he knows that how Southerners are, how Mexicans are in prison. More than likely they're gonna get off. They're gonna get you. And he's like, I already know how you guys do it. Fuck that. I'm gonna get off first, right? So imagine this guy, he thought everything was cool. That's why you can't put your guard down in prison. You always got to stay aware. You got to peep the scene. Most people, you're able to peep the scene. You notice any little thing out of place, get off. That's my advice. Get off, right? There's an electricity in the air in prison when there's going to be a removal. The yard gets quiet. Like, what's going on. Get off. Anyways, we're going to get into part 2, man. And I believe in part 2, man, he starts getting into what happened with the war with the 2-5ers, which is the other predominantly dropout gang on the SNY yard, man. And I do know that the Zapatistas and 2-5ers are at war, where there's been a lot of bodies and a lot of hits, right? So we're going to get into that later on today. Make sure you guys tap in. If you enjoy these, hit a 1. I appreciate all the support. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's always going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I truly believe in, and that's the betterment of all people. I'm going to continue to do these. I think that just listening to these stories, man, gives people a better understanding of how it really is from every different angle, different gangs and different sides. So we're going to continue to do that. Remember, this video is sponsored by Barrio Liquors out there in Turlock, California. If you're in the Turlock area, the Central Valley, pull up to the Barrio, buy you something, and get you something cold to drink. Also, this video right here is sponsored by Sticks and Stones Yard Service in Tucson, Arizona. If you're in the Tucson area and you need an estimate on some yard work, make sure that you reach out to Sticks and Stones Yard Service and let them handle that for you, man. I appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys tap in later for part 2.